What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Binge Empire, Bingetown TV's sci-fi and fantasy podcast, and our coverage of The Wheel of Time Season 3. And this is going to be Episode 5. Dave and Paul, would you like to do the honors of this episode name? We had a little practice before the recording, so let's see the results of it. Who wants to step up and go?
Oh, are you talking about the dream world, Tel'aran'rhiod?
That was not bad.
Yeah. That was good. No, that was good. That sounded right. That sounded smooth right there. I'm not even going to follow it up.
What sounded smooth, Dave? What word?
The dream world sounded real smooth.
Okay, so very aptly named episode. If it is your first time here, obviously episode 4 popped off in the mainstream, which we are very happy about. We had a blast covering episode 4 on the podcast. So if you're kind of new to our coverage, you probably heard, you actually probably haven't heard me say this, but if you're listening from previous episodes, you have heard me say this. But my name is Kyle. I'm kind of the host and keep us rolling through these episode discussions. I have read the books. I am joined by Luke. So on YouTube, I believe he's on my right here, aka Lanfear's son. He is the other book reader on the podcast. We are joined by Paul and Dave, who you just heard practicing their Hooked on Phonics of the Wheel of Time. They are show only, so they did not read the books, so they're experiencing all of this for the first time. And the way the show works basically is that we talk through things, they ask questions, we ask them questions, and we just get to experience things through their eyes for the first time. And then Luke and I either get to gush about things that we loved, or maybe we throw some gripes out there. Okay. I know that last time we jumped into pre-episode thoughts. Do we want to do that again, or do we want to get right into talking about the episode?
Let's get right into it, because I think there's a decent amount that'll come out of our opinions as we're talking about it.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Before we do get started, so we're going to break down the episode into what we call buckets. So we'll talk about the Tanchico trio, which becomes a quartet, and we'll talk about the Two River. All those conversations will happen separately. I just want to mention two things. The first thing being, we talked at length last episode about how there was 2 Jonai visions. There was not 2 Jonai visions. That's neither here nor there, but just wanted to call out that we had made that mistake. So thank you for those in the YouTube comments that corrected us. That dovetails perfectly into the second thing I want to say, in that the response to our last episode was fantastic. We had such a good time reading all of the comments and everyone contributing to the conversation. So just wanted to give everyone a shout out. We thank you for engaging with and enjoying the content. And also for everyone that did enjoy it, keep it to themselves. So that's perfect. Everyone listened, so everyone wins. All right. So the first bucket we have here in this episode is the trio of the quartet that's going to Tanchico. So this whole time we spend basically on the boat until the end. The first scene I have here that we should talk about is that we have Elaine, Nynaeve, and Matt are in the hold in the room of this sea folk ship, and Matt has kind of just had enough. So they end up going up deck. We kind of learn a bit about what their 2 weeks have been like, but I'm just kind of curious at a high level of, was it nice to be back with this group, even though we're all arguing the whole time? Because we know that last episode was pure Aiel waste stuff.
I personally enjoyed coming back to this group. I think off pod prior to this, I did say that this was probably my least interesting storyline, but it's still interesting in the sense that we are just getting so much more world lore build up here. We get a different faction introduced, which is always really cool to see. And I thought it was a cool introduction to those seafarers. And I'm happy to see Matt, Min, Elaine, and Nynaeve definitely all back together.
It's funny because I still feel like Elaine is the new girl. So I still feel like I'm learning a bunch about her, and she's not exactly in the group yet, but I feel like she is. She's been through enough with all of them, and I feel like it's been more time than the show leads on that they've actually spent together. Maybe I'm missing some of the cues. We can talk about that a little bit later. I have a question about timing of things, but I just love Matt. Right. I mean, everything he says is so witty. He's so funny. He's pissed off, but he's still making jokes. It's great. So as soon as Elaine was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. We shouldn't be here. He's like, oh, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go check it out right now. And it was just everything he does. His delivery is brilliant. So I can't get enough of him.
And this was a very surprising in a good way grouping of scenes here, because I was totally of the mindset that they were just going to cut the Sea Folk out as a faction because, you know, condensing 14 books into 7, 8 seasons, whatever we're doing here, like some things are going to need to get cut. I'm really happy that they kept the Sea Folk in here. I think they captured the vibe well of all of them with their extra piercings, their free flowing personalities, and how they deal with the channeling is so cool. And like their power, their view of the power is so cool. So it's really nice that they put this all in here. I will say that there are 2 lines that I hate it beyond belief in this episode, and one of them is right here actually, which is, unless I'm wrong and misremembering how important Sea Folk deals are, the fact that they break the deal, and Elaine goes on to say it's very important, we can't go upstairs, that's all we promise, and they break it 2 seconds later, it kind of, to me, cheapens what the Sea Folk actually are, because like that's a lot of their dealings in the books has to deal with that stuff. And maybe I'm just misremembering and I'm putting too much weight on them caring about the Sea Folk deals, but they cared enough about it to write that piece of dialogue in there, and then to break it right away with 0 consequences, especially with the conversations later, is the only thing that bothered me. Sorry to start off like negative, because I love everything else about this episode, but that's the thing that I link into, and that's what gets brought up right here. So Kyle, am I wrong or right about that with the Sea Folk?
In my memory, you're correct. I also kind of got that feeling. I think the way that they did it was kind of nice, with like the tenderness towards Nynaeve, who the past 8 maybe episodes has needed some type of kindness being extended to her, because she's been through the ringer in her own way, especially through all the Leandrin stuff. She's still dealing with the block, as we get reminded here. So I understood the way that it was done, but I do agree in that, like, someone who has read the books and read through them once, and maybe it's been a while, like, I think the one thing that would stick with you, or one of the things, would definitely be about like the strength of the deals and like what a word means to the Sea Folk. And it does both get brought up and then kind of maybe slightly trounced within the same 10 seconds, which is interesting. Like you did say, though, they're in the show now, so we'll see if things get reiterated, reinforced in different ways.
Even for me watching for the first time, I mean, I was like furious at Matt when he stormed off and like went up to the deck, because Elaine said it. It sounded to me that, you know, you should probably listen to the Seafarers and not go against their word. Who knows if they could just kick you off the ship right then and there, you know? And I was expecting definitely much more of a big backlash, especially with how Elaine was reacting. But I agree with you, Kyle, also that the tenderness to Nynaeve did present an opportunity for them to maybe go, I don't want to say go back on their word, but allowed the Seafarers to maybe sympathize with them a little bit.
They are called the Sea Folk, so just keep
Sea Folk, okay.
Yeah. Just as a correction, but go ahead.
I also want to say maybe too that the reality of Elaine and Nynaeve finding out about the fact that they can channel. So there is we get kind of introduced to 2 different terms here. There's kind of the hierarchy within the Sea Folk, being the sail mistress is what we would kind of know more colloquially as like the captain of the ship. And then we have the wind finders, who are the people, the women that are channeling and making the boat go faster. Maybe you could convince me that the fact that Elaine and Nynaeve saw the wind finders and know the secret, and that it was like, okay, it's kind of like a tit for tat of like, just don't say anything about the wind finders and we won't do anything about the fact that you broke our deal.
Yeah, don't love it, because that just, again, just makes their deals care less. Like the whole point of the deal was to protect the secret. Now they're just going to blindly trust these girls. Again, this is like my biggest complaint. So it'll be all flowers from here on out. I just hate that, because I thought the aesthetic and like the sound and the score around the Sea Folk was so freaking cool. It was beautiful. It makes sense. It's a whole different take. Like we have the wise ones who somewhat use the power. Some of them do in their own way. We have the refined channelers of the White Tower, and then we have this free flowing, not trying to control the power but guide it type of people. That's like where Wheel of Time is at its best. And Robert Jordan, the writer of the books, is always constantly praised about how good he is at like creating cultures that are so unique and breathable in the world. So I think this is both amazing and has the worst line of the episode for me, the whole Sea Folk introduction. But it will go a long way, because I think that now that they're here, they're going to be brought back in a fun way. And it's a cool idea of how they channel.
I love the sea folk. Like off the
Mhm.
bat, they were great. Just their whole aesthetic. You guys were bringing it up.
Yeah.
And you know, they seem chill. They seem cool. They're like, all right, cool. Don't tell anybody. Just shh. And then just for clarification, their plan, our trio, they were talking about what their plan is once they get to Tanchico, and it was just find Leandrin and then leave, right? They're just doing reconnaissance, but they're a little concerned because they don't even know her like real last name. But I have a feeling once they get there, she made such a ruckus that it won't be that difficult to narrow down at least where she was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all kind of. Elaine seems to be the most, let's say, mission driven. Nynaeva's trying to keep her breakfast down. Matt wants some fresh air. So they're all kind of on slightly different pages, but I think that is the general gist of things, Paul. That's kind of the way that they're pointing themselves forward. I would say there's kind of two main thrusts, let's say, of these collections of scenes. The one that we haven't really touched as much is the Matt and the Min of it all. So we kind of get this reinforcement again that Min's vision of Matt hanging is important to her. He kind of drops the facade of the happy-go-lucky Matt that we all love after he sees it. So I'm just kind of curious of what our thoughts were of the drawing was odd, but the reasoning behind it made a lot of sense to me. And then I'm just kind of curious of what you guys are thinking about Matt's reaction, because I know we have kind of talked. It was almost at a meta level, basically, when he was like, well, you know, they don't always come true because I didn't kill Rand and I didn't do this. You know, those things of that, like, what is the actual nature of the visions? How direct and explicit are they? So I'm just kind of curious if there's any takes there from especially Dave and Paul.
So, Dave, you said it last time. That vision is just Matt hanging out, right? So it's like not a big deal. We shouldn't be really worried about it. It's just symbolic. Honestly, I'm terrified of it. Matt, I keep bringing it back to the one conversation that the Aes Sedai had where they're talking about how the Dark One was like, I'm sorry, Luce Theron was like real good friends with like a lot of the Forsaken, right? He was like really close with Ishii before everything happened. And I keep freaking out because I don't want that to happen to our group. I don't want them all to be best friends and one tear off and become evil or dark or take dark oaths. And the obvious choice, if it had to be one of them, has been Matt. And like I thought he was kind of away from it when he's the hero of the horn blower. I thought that kind of separated himself, but he just so much darkness and like surrounds him. It's weird. So I'm getting these like hints, and we see him hanging, and I'm like, we know the dark ones don't actually die, so like is he gonna hang and then not actually die because he like swore dark oaths or something like that? I don't know how likely it is. Just it's thoughts that go through my head and worry me because I don't want our boy Matt to be bad.
I felt like they kept describing the vision as a suicide, that Matt would hang himself. And I thought that was just a peculiar way to say it because, someone easily could have put Matt in a position like that, and they kept worrying about Matt doing it to himself. And Matt is emphasizing that he would never do it. So the only thing I really took away is I don't see Matt doing it on purpose. I think someone must end up putting him in a position where he has to do that or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. He says, he goes, I didn't kill Rand. I'm not going to kill myself. Well, probably not. So he was like, yeah, there's a chance. And then also towards the end of the episode, when they actually dock, they do see the one guy hanging, and we're like, all right, is that what's going to happen to Matt? Like, is he going to piss somebody off? Is he going to make eye contact? Is he going to flash his money around? Everything Min said not to do. And maybe he does get tossed up just as a casualty of Tanchico, but maybe he doesn't die. Maybe it's like a Jack Sparrow situation where like he gets saved right as he drops.
I will say that picture that Min drew looked exactly like the guy that Matt sees in at the
does.
dock of Tanchico. Obviously, we know that she sees Matt in the original vision, but the drawing itself looked like the person that was hanging in Tanchico. And I was like, okay, I guess
Speaking
Matt slid away. He's good.
Speaking of Tanchico, I'm curious of what is there like a city vibe that you were getting off of that? And I described that terribly, so I'll just give my opinion on it. I feel like it reminds me of like old New Orleans. It just has like this like voodoo like mysticism vibe to it that I'm really looking forward to what it actually ends up looking like in the light of day and when we're like in the city
it's
itself.
definitely Pirates of the Caribbean
Tortuga,
vibes.
yeah, Tortuga.
That's
Okay.
what I was
100%.
thinking. I thought you were going
Pirate
off on Jack
Island for
Sparrow
Black
comment.
Sails too. Yeah.
I guess I didn't specify whether I was asking for real life places or fictional places, so that is very fair. That's clearly on me. We're not describing my question accurately. Before I think we move off of really the Tanchico squad, I just want to call out the information that we get about Nynaeve's block here. So this is, I would say, maybe one of the first times in recent memory for me, I could also just be forgetting of where it gets addressed so specifically, that Nynaeve's block and kind of what she thinks about channeling and all of that stuff. And I just found it very interesting of the way the sail mistress says, one of you fight to hold where you stand, talking about Nynaeve. And essentially when she also mentions about like, you know, are you someone that likes to have control and likes to have power? And Elaine giggles, but at the end of the day, like that is kind of what is going on with Nynaeve. It's hinting at what's kind of going on with her mentally. I like the connection to her, the seasickness. That's like a classic trait of Nynaeve. It gets brought up so many times of how she's like terrified of boats because she always gets very seasick on them. They even get, I think into later in the books, they get into some hijinks of like, they could just take a boat and it'll be a lot quicker. But Nynaeve's like, no, we're not doing that. So things happen because they avoid the boats. But I just liked this show getting back to this because I think at some level we're all aware of it and maybe frustrated by it. So it's nice that it's becoming more of like an explicit plot point, which leads us to believe that it's going to get addressed more and more.
For what it's worth, I am 0% frustrated with Nynaeve's block compared to what the books do to you. Just in how much they talk about it, it's so much worse in the books. I think it makes more sense here, and it's a really well-timed metaphor that the sea folk are saying to her, like how you deal with the seasickness. You have to, let your legs wobble beneath you, feel the earth around you and stuff like that. It was perfectly timed to couple that with like a metaphorical lesson for her. So I think it worked out really well. Are we done with this whole area? Because I definitely want to say one just quick comment about when the four squad up. And then you guys can say your final pieces on the bucket. But like, I just love that small moment when Nynaeve and Elaine are asking Matt, like, we're obviously not bringing Min. Like, we can't trust her. Can we trust her, Matt? And they like completely defer to him. And that to me is just amazing to see those little moments, how they grew up together. The Emmonsfield Five hasn't had a lot of screen time together recently on the show for an extended period of time, but like you got to remember they're best friends, they're family, they trust each other's take on other people. So I thought that Matt saying and giving Min the stamp of approval was a really cool moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was exactly all the feels that you were just talking about. Just actually seeing Matt kind of be the hero that Swan was talking about not too many episodes ago. He's just kind of doing the right thing, and people are looking towards him and believe in him. So it's really good to see that, like you were saying. When you were talking about the sea folks ability to use the one power, I didn't comment on it, but I thought it was amazing. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last episode. I'm gonna go back to it, like The Witcher, and how it's like a different form. It's the same magic, but it's just utilized in a different way. And I can't believe I didn't bring this up, but it's kind of like magicians with hedge witches, right? They learn to use magic not from break bills. Break bills is the quote unquote correct way, and hedge witches are a different way. And this is just a different way that people learned how to utilize it, and it's perfect. I think it looks amazing the way they like dance with it too. And when they referenced Nynaeve saying like, oh, like you can't touch it. Oh, you're trying to force it. You don't give up control. That's your problem. You need to go with the flow of it. I was like, that is a beautiful explanation, because like you guys were saying, I was getting frustrated. Like, why can't she do it? She's been to Tar Valon. She's been in the tower, but this is a wonderful little like back door. Is there's more than one way, right? And I think that's perfect.
And Egwene's figuring that out in her own way too, which is cool.
This is exactly what I was picturing in my head when we go back to, I think it was episode 2, when Loial is traveling through the ways, and you guys were kind of, Kyle and Luke were a little bit confused on why Loial was talking about, oh, this is such a more convenient way of traveling than using the one power, I think is what he said at the time. And this is exactly how I pictured it. I think I even said to Luke off pod, I was thinking in my head that when he mentions that, I in my head pictured people using the one power as like a motor for a boat. Luke said at the time no, but here we are episodes later with the sea folk, and this
Dude,
is
well,
exactly
I defend
how I
that
thought.
point because how Loyal said that line. I think you guys read it
That's-
wrong, and I think I was
No,
right
I feel like
about
I
that.
read it right on the money if this is exactly what I was thinking of. But this is, like Paul said, it felt like she was dancing rather than just, kind of using hand signals. And it was just a clear distinction in how they use the one power. Just amazing. I really like that. And it's cool to see that, because we have the Forsaken using the one power to legitimately teleport places, whereas these people are using it to guide the water and the boat to where they need to go. So obviously clear power scaling levels there, but interesting.
I will clarify that they're guiding the wind.
Yes, they're guiding the wind,
Yeah.
not moving the water itself, but they are.
Yes.
Yeah, that's because
The
it was
wind.
also green too, which goes into the topic of the coloring that they're doing to make
The types of
the
weaves.
elements, more visually, and so that makes sense that she was using a green weave to use it for winds.
Dave, I have a question for you, non-book reader to non-book reader.
Oh God.
Do Min and Matt have a romantic future together, or
That's
they just
fun.
buddies?
That's funny. I think I feel like it was Luke or Alki brought it up and asked me the same thing. I think it's purely friendship, personally. I'm not getting real sexual tension between them. If they end up together, I would certainly love that, because I think both of them are really great characters. So that would definitely be a great power couple. But I'm gonna guess that they are just, it's purely platonic. They're just really good friends. Min doesn't
Yeah,
strike me as a person that likes men, we'll say the least.
I couldn't tell, because like when they were in the cells together, season 2, it kind of felt like there was something there. Then everything happened, and they had that dust up, because obviously everything with Min working with Ishi, and I don't know. It kind of seems like now that the dust has settled, they could be back into like their each other's good graces. So I don't know. I like them together, but it just also would suck that she is watching this person that she likes die in her visions. That would blow.
Were you taking her line of these walls are very thin? Is that maybe subconsciously playing into that as well, Paul? Were you thinking that
I honestly
she
think
was giving him a warning, like, okay, no funny business, buddy, because these walls are thin and they'll find out?
I didn't think of that. I thought of it the line before where Matt was like, "Oh, you have a room here? Can I stay in your room?" And then as soon as that was going on, and she was like, "Yeah, you can stay in my room," she was like begrudgingly, but she was like, I wanted him to ask. I wanted him to ask to stay. So
Last thing I want to say here about Min is, while yes, I think she, we squashed the beef between her and Matt. They're on good terms now. Matt obviously says yes, we can trust her. Nynaeve still, I don't think, fully accepted that yes, because obviously Nynaeve in her experience knows that Min screwed them over with Ishmael back in season 1. Elaine has never interacted with Min, and Elaine's thought process is, we cannot trust a soul because we don't know who's working for the Black Aja. So I think it's still on the side of 2-1 in terms of we agree that Min's here. And I just hope that Min doesn't lose their gaining trust for at least Elaine and Nynaeve. I worry that there is going to be another potential opportunity for Min to betray them, and not that she would take it, but as a sign of greed, but more of like her being forced to. So I don't want
I
that
will
to
say
happen.
too that Min is clearly being introduced as someone that actually has like worldly experience and let's say street smarts. Elaine is very cultured from the sense that she is like well read about the world. Nynaeve and Matt are, I mean, for lack of a better term, they're kind of country bumpkins at this point in their lives. They haven't really been to a lot of places before. They know their own ways, but I like that juxtaposition of the whole group of like all of the kind of traits that they have. We also knew Matt too is a degenerate at some level, so he doesn't really have a problem getting his feet, hands, and elbows dirty with the low folk, let's say. So they obviously there's a lot of opportunity here for them to get up to some hijinks.
Matt and Elaine definitely had a little extra tension between them. Obviously, they're still kind of getting used to one another's presence because Elaine only was really introduced to, Nynaeve and Egwene. She hadn't really met the boyos at that point yet. So they're both trying to figure out each other's personalities so that they can hopefully become friends.
That is funny too that you've noticing that, because that is like a character trait of Matt, and that he's generally like anti nobleman, noblewoman,
right?
Like people with like high birth and like standing. He's generally tries to stay away or usually butts heads with those people. So that is funny that is coming across for you. Okay, I think before we leave, just want to mention to the Elaine side of the Windfinder Sail Mistress conversation with Nynaeve, and that we're getting this reinforcement. This is kind of what I talked about a little bit off pod with Luke of the episode. It was kind of like a eat your vegetables of like we're getting reintegrated into these storylines that we left for a full week of. We're getting this reminder rather that Elaine is kind of running away a little bit from this predestined path that when she was born it was always going to be this one way, and she is kind of forcing herself onto this adventure in another way. So just wanted to add in that characterization of Elaine. Okay, the next story bucket we're going to cover, setting/location, it's going to be the Two Rivers. So there's kind of two little scenes at the start that I think we can kind of just combine. So resetting the scene of what's going on here, we get Fael, Bane, and Chiad we're out scouting. They return with the news that Whitecloaks reinforcements are coming through the mountains. So now would be the time to go save the captured Cawthon family. So we have Matt's mom and his two sisters have been captured. And then they also give us a little bit insight into the camp itself. We see them captured. We see Child Valda and Dane Bornhold have a conversation. And then we get a little bit of a revelation here that at least one of the Cawthon sisters can channel the One Power.
I just want to say this up front now because of 2 episodes ago. I was talking about Matt's family being captured, and I was like, I don't really care about the mom. I'm going to take that back. I feel a little bad. Did not see that outcome coming at all. I did not think she was going to die. Jumping the gun a little bit.
They actually rewrote the scene after they heard your opinion, and they made you want to feel bad.
I heard they had to do reshoots. Yeah. But I did feel really bad. Child Valda was freaking me out this whole time. He is leaning back in. We're seeing full force the I want to torture people. I enjoy torturing people aspect of him. I hate him. I think he should have died a few times now. And I loved when Hopper was biting him, and I wish he bit him more. Dude, rant. Sorry, I was going off. We were talking about Perrin and everybody else. No thoughts.
More just F Valda.
I'll chime in and just say, yeah, fuck Child Valda. So angry whenever he's on the screen. But while Dane was an ass this episode, I do sympathize with him. I really is it weird to say that I still like Dane even after this episode? I feel bad for him because I'm jumping the gun here too when he's talking about, you've made me become a bad person. Parents telling him like, I thought you were good. And that hit so hard for me because we were all in agreement that Dane was a cool, chill guy. And maybe the future of the Whitecloaks could have been handed off to him and put in good grace going forward. But this is definitely the twist here, and it sucked watching this progress into that.
I love Dane Bornhold. I think
Okay.
he's such a good character for the reasons you're saying. Like, the only reason he's bad is because of the situation that our main characters really got him into, and his delivery was so freaking good. I know you jumped the gun, so I'm gonna ride off that when he just says, like, I was a good man. Like, it's so good. The story's good, and it's all because of his dad, who was like a great moral white cloak that just happened to come across Perrin in a bad way. But yeah, he's you need this type of gray, maybe not even gray characters, but like, if you're gonna call Valda like pure evil, right? Like he's evil. Bornhold's like a gray white cloak where he's a little bit morally ambiguous. So it's more fun to have people like him. And there'll be more to talk about with him when we get to the later parts, but I guess we can kind of move on to the next.
I will say I hate how he has that white cloak mindset, because when one of the daughters uses the one power, he immediately says witch, and that's just, it's just, they're kids, and he was probably, after seeing that, if they had revealed, if it was more obvious to him that it was the child that had used the one power, I don't think Dane would have held back, and he still would have given them up to Valda. So obviously the white cloak perspective of things definitely hurts his character a lot, because fuck the White Cloaks for just going around killing Aes Sedai. But yeah, I like Dane as well.
We do get in the season 2 finale, I believe, in that we kind of were introduced to his dad, and he seemed like this clean-cut soldier. We also meet him in season 1, and he seems, let's say, reasonable in comparison to everyone else, but he also does still use the term witches, and like Dane is kind of looking up to him in a way. So he's obviously been ideologically brainwashed, is probably the term, especially from our perspective, because we're obviously chilling with channeling in general. We support it. We support maybe both women's rights and wrongs in the show from time to time. So not totally fans of the white cloak ideology, but
like,
I think Dane's been a great character.
Like, I get it if the White Cloaks kind of took a Red Aja perspective and we're like, okay, if we would want to extinguish all the male channelers, in terms of preserving, their sanity and not making them go around murdering random people. So if they wanted to do that, I would be okay with it. But they're just killing innocent girls, women, just because they can channel. It's messed up.
Yeah. Just my 2 cents. I love Borny Jr. I think he's a great character. I agree with everything you guys said. I think his whole story is just a tragedy from what we have seen of it. And I think Luke said this a few episodes ago. He could be the main character of his own story, but it just happens to be we're on the other side right now. So I like him a lot. I would like to believe he wouldn't have given up any of the family to Child Valda. It was just he was pushed with the trying to steal the keys and then, the actual magic use. But I don't know. Maybe he would have. The only other thing about this scene that I would say I'm a little upset with, and I don't think there's anything they can do about it, I just feel like we get such little loyal, and I think it's just a product of the makeup chair and the cosmetics, and they can't have him in every scene because they would need him to be ready, and that's logistically not doable. So I just wish we could get more of him, but just the production of things, I feel like that's why we don't.
Well, I mean, they give a fairly good in-universe reason, being he's not very good at being stealthy. It makes a little bit of sense why he's not part of the infiltration team going into the camp.
They said the exact same thing in the beginning of season 2. They were like, loyal, stay with the horses. And I was just like, that's because same exact thing.
But we saw we know he can brawl a little bit, because we did see him and Perrin fighting some people back in season 2, I believe. It was the Swan Shen when they first arrived.
The Swan Shen is back.
Swan Shen, yes. Sean Shen, sorry.
Swan.
Yeah, Swan.
Paul's Swan Shen terminology has returned. I think this is perfect. We can just move into the actual action parts of this bucket. It's probably best, I think, to talk about it in 2 separate conversations. I think we can talk about the Perrin, Aiel, Bane, and Chi out of it all, and then we can talk about the Alana and Maxim because I literally write it every other. It's Maskim in my notes, and then the next time it's Maxim, and then the next time it's Maskim, and then the next time it's Maxim. 99% sure it's Maxim, but we can talk about the Perrin, Fael, Bane, and Chia of it all. Like I mentioned, I think I watched this opening conversation scene like 8 times of Perrin being like, okay, so me, Bane, and Chia. And Fael's like, and me. And he's like, and then they get, and she puts the knife up to his throat, and Bane and Chia look at each other and go, and her. I think I watched it like 8 times. I just absolutely love
beast,
her.
man. I love the double daggers.
Yeah.
She reminds me of Vin. She reminds me of Arya. She reminds me of Scarlet from Raven's Watch. She's got it all.
Scarlet from Raven's Watch. That's a deep cut right there. I agree, though. Fael has been absolutely on the rise for me as a character, especially after seeing her kick some ass with those double daggers. Perfect timing because, you know, Kyle and I have been discussing solo leveling as well, and we got Sung Jin Woo rocking double daggers there. So love me some double daggers, and I love that she can fight. It makes sense that she would if she is a follower of the
Hunter
horn,
of the horn.
hunter of the horn, and it would only make sense that she, if she ever did encounter the horn, that she would be ready herself to throw some hands. So I really love this for her character, and I was shocked that she was even more capable than I thought in terms of she was handling those 2 Whitecloaks very easily while Perrin was just struggling alone with Dane. So Fael,
Well,
you might be being brought up in the end of the episode. Hint, hint, wink, 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 wink.
that should put some respect on Dane as a fighter because Perrin's a beast.
Yes.
And
We
then
also seen
also,
Perrin be a beast. Yeah.
did you catch the 619 that she whipped out randomly in the middle of that fight? That was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh no, she's getting thrown around, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, no, she's throwing him around. She's a beast. I have in my notes like new favorite character alert just for like everybody on the world watching this. They're like, there's not one person that's like, Fael's a little weird. Everybody's like, dude, she's amazing. Like the coolest. We got like a slow introduction to her. It was really funny with her line about, here's my name. Oh, it's Lance Horse. But seeing her in action has just put her in a whole different light. It makes me excited for the Two Rivers storyline. Like I was talking about this season 2. I was talking about this season 2. There's not one storyline where I don't like. I like them all. I like some more than others, but the Two Rivers was going kind of slow with everything. And now I'm just like, show it to me, dude. I want more of her. Perrin has been very quiet this season as well. So would love to have more of him. It was heartbreaking to see the wolves' heads on spikes. That was pretty tough. And, that's basically his brothers, that's his pack. So that was terrible. And I won't even get into the dream yet. That will make you cry. But this fight, I don't know where Borny's going to be. And when I say Borny, I mean Dane. I called back in season 1 his dad. I called him Borny for those OGs. If you're still around,
yeah.
But the last we saw, Fael threw the knife. It's in his chest. He already was getting destroyed by Perrin. Okay, shoulder, not chest.
Yeah, that looked more like what is that? Decker. He tried to deflect the bullet. And he went in the shoulder.
Yeah.
That's exactly in the shoulder.
That's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut.
So I'm just
good shot.
Worried.
Come on.
That's amazing.
So
I'm just
good.
worried for him because obviously they can't use Aes Sedai to heal. So I'd like to think he's alive.
Hey, you bitches.
And we obviously know Alana's not doing too well herself, so
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
That is a good point though, Paul. That he definitely ate that dagger straight in the chest, not in the chest, in the shoulder. So we'll see what becomes of him. I was genuinely shocked at the immediate outcome for Natty Cawthon, Matt's mom. She is dead as a doorknob.
Yeah.
Excuse my crassness to the individuals that sometimes comment on our language, but dead as a doorknob. I was shocked by that.
It was good to bring the darkness back, man, because you need that. You need the reminder that characters are going to die. And you don't get that often in shows in general because they want to use the plot armor. And I can't even consider this not plot armor just because like she's such a side character, but it is nice to kill people that actually have stakes because, you know, we saw her in Matt's dream later, which is even sadder to have that realization. But back to like the Bornhold and Perrin part of it all. I just love their relationship. It's not good, but I love it. I love seeing it on screen. And just the way that Perrin still, even in his heart, said, I thought you were one of the good ones. I thought you were a good man. That was just so good. That whole line delivery was really good. But I mean, I guess the rest of the whole storyline that we're going to talk about here is Valda and Alana stuff. Do either of you guys have any more comments you want to bring up before we step away from Perrin? Because I feel like we'll get more of him next episode.
Do I
I
count
guess it's
as
more.
either?
What was that?
Do I count as either of you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
My only thing, at least with the daughters, is I just have a question on: do we know where Matt's dad is at? Is he not around anymore? I can't remember.
No, they said his dad helped Perrin's family escape.
Okay, so it was only the girls that were taken, I guess, just because my mind is running to the idea of if the father wasn't in the picture anymore, then the only, I think, option left for the Matt's sisters would be heading to the White Tower, at least to, you know, try and hone the one power use. So I think as long as the father, I guess, isn't a key player, I imagine they'll be heading to the White Tower soon.
Look at this guy with his understanding of world dynamics and how factions fucking recruit and things. Look at this guy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. My comment was just going to be I like how they mentioned or at least included the part when Matt's sisters are like, Parent, dude, what's good with your eyes, man? Like it wasn't just like an accepted thing. They're calling it out and commenting on it. So that's all I had there.
All right, back to Alana. I can take it from here because there's a pre-speech that happens, and then there's Valda having his little plan to go chase a witch with real power. And I just want to highlight the pre-speech thing because I loved the pre-speech. I thought everything she was saying here is so important. And
Maxim.
the water,
Maxim.
Maxim, like at an emotional level and an empathetic level, he's right to feel the way he does, but I'm always thinking about the broader plot of things. And that's what the Aes Sedai do. Like they think of things in terms of decades and years and prepping for the prophecy. And she's right. Everything she says here, she's like, we have to raise a freaking army because we're not going to beat the Dark One by ourselves. The literal Hornblower of Valir, the two strongest Aes Sedai we've seen ever in our lifetime, they're all from here. The Dragon Reborn himself. Like, we have to raise an army from here. And Maxim pushing back, I just didn't like it because he also needs to kind of get with the program. Like, we can deal with the emotional stuff after we deal with the actual, you know, real world effects of like what's happening here. We need to start prepping for the dragon to win the last battle. So I loved everything that Alana was saying here. I don't know how people are going to react to this. I could be in the minority even on this podcast, but like, are you guys in the same boat, or did you think that Alana was going to, like, Alana wasn't relating to her warder enough, I guess?
I
had a
have
feeling
in parentheses in my notes, it just says he a baby.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
I think his role is important in that it's a good exploration of grief and the ways that they're handling it is different. But yeah, obviously I'm like, Alana, I agree.
I called him,
like
I called him a diva.
Pull yourself up from them bootstraps and let's get rocking. Put that katana on your back and let's cook, King.
I was like 70-30 in favor of Alana being right there. Like,
Okay,
I understand where Maxim's coming from, but I was definitely team Alana, especially when we are about to take on the Whitecloaks and rescue like Matt's family. His mind shouldn't be away from the mission. You know, it shouldn't be focused on Leandrin in this moment. It should be focused on saving these people, helping out Perrin, and then maybe we can start talking about revenge on Leandrin. But it was like 70-30. I understood where he came from, but yeah, team Alana.
Her rhetoric was a little harsh, but like,
yeah, it was. But that's how she struck me these past few episodes. Is that she is just a battle-hardened woman, you know, and
as
she's
a green.
ready.
That's what greens are.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what greens are exactly. So she was just. It shouldn't have been surprising for Maxim that she felt this way to me.
I did not see myself coming into this pod as the Maxim defender, but I'll go ahead and defend him. I mean, I I agreed with everything that you guys were saying up until the point where he said the only thing I've ever cared about is Ivan. And that's like,
No,
if
he does say NU. Took me 2 watches to get that.
Oh, he does say NU?
He says
Yeah,
NU,
yeah. I
yes.
didn't get that the first watch through, so I don't blame you for missing that.
Yeah, she's fighting for the Dragon Reborn, but he is fighting for Ivan, who unfortunately is now passed, and also Alana. Like, he is fighting for those two, but she is fighting for the world, basically.
Right.
I get where he's coming from in the sense that all he's cared about is those two. So why are we putting ourselves in the way to defend the dragon when Maxim doesn't care about it? I agree, he should, because she cares about it. I understand though also here how he's broken and nothing else matters because it's your whole world basically. I'm a little bit backing off now that he also said this about her, because if you truly did love her, then you would kind of understand everything. I don't know.
Let me push you in a way maybe that you'll jump back on, even though I'm going against myself right here. But this is the exact relationship that Moiraine and Rand have, where Moiraine is not fighting for Rand. She's fighting for the prophecy, the dragon reborn, in the same way that Alana is. Whereas Rand wants her to care about him and like the decisions that she makes for his well-being. So in that way, like, since I'm Rand till I die, I guess Maxim has a point there. But I also, the Dragon Reborn
Yeah.
prophecy, that matters a little bit more.
Yeah.
When you add in the Rand coefficient, then maybe the numbers start to make sense.
Yeah, it's like 60, 40, 55, 45.
I start to become hypocritical real fast. When
I
Rand
was literally about to
is
say the
involved.
same thing, Kyle, that once you brought up Rand and in that parallel, I was like, okay, maybe I'm a little bit back on Team Maxim, but
Yeah.
I
It's
love
like
that.
guy who only understands one Wheel of Time character. I'm getting a lot of Rand al'Thor out of this guy.
Well, she did bring him up too, which was awesome. I absolutely loved this part in the speech where she's like, our crew, the strongest channelers we have, the Dragon Reborn, they have all literally come from this place. The blood of Manetheren is here. And I was like, oh, that's tight. I forgot they were descendants of this badass kingdom. And the whole story that Moiraine told in season 1 was that the queen was so distraught, right? Like, I can't remember. I think she was being attacked, and she literally was so powerful though that she consumed the one power and like lost herself in it, and then basically just exploded, and it destroyed everything, including the city. Correct? Okay.
Yeah. They were defending
That's
against
awesome.
the Trolloc army. The White Tower didn't send any help, so then they kind of made their last stand. The king leading it. The king dies, who was her warder, so she felt him die. At that point, she loses all hope, so she just turns herself into a nuke, basically. Which is
Love it,
hard,
dude. 2 Rivers are strong as hell, man.
Yeah, man.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Which
they are.
Got it right that time. Yeah.
I didn't say this earlier when we were talking about, because I was waiting for this moment. I think that Matt's younger sisters being able to touch the one power is so much cooler after hearing this as well, that they are still descendants of Manetheren, and that's why they can channel. And assuming it wasn't actually Matt's mother, I assumed she just did that to take the hit for one of the daughters, and we're going to figure out pretty soon. And I could see one of those daughters being a mainstay and being one of the crew.
Dude, the wheel, man, it's tricky. How like the things kind of come back around like that. It's what it does.
Yeah, I mean, at this
the wheel
point,
turns.
We know years have passed already. I think it gets referenced somewhere at this point that it's been a few years since Moiraine legitimately says it to Egwene. But yeah, I mean, if years have already passed and we're in season 3 and we have X amount of more seasons to come, I definitely could imagine these sisters, growing up, becoming mainstay players into the whole story.
Okay,
but let's take it.
My
Let's
last
take it back
comment
to
on I just one which will I think lead it back into it is that Maxim is also kind of low key making an impact on the preparedness of the Black Aja. If he does kill Leandrin, that is actually not a terrible plan, but he's not really doing it for those reasons. He's not thinking last battle. He's thinking my heart. But yeah, Alana, I think she puts up a good fight here. It was interesting to get this visualization of what it would be like, one channeler versus, I think I ended up counting potentially 12 Whitecloaks with crossbows. I liked the visualization that she's holding her own until she takes one, and that kind of like temporary drop in concentration throws the entire scene into chaos. I loved you get like the unsheathing of the sword sound kind of before you see Maxim, which I thought was fantastic. And these two, they can put in some work. They're obviously hurting afterwards, but I think it was a decent night work for the two of them.
Definitely.
How did they locate Alana in it through the mist is what I'm curious about, I guess.
Valda has a line earlier that he went. So first of all, the mist was awesome use of her power when she's like, I'm going to provide the cover. That was so needed. And it was really freaking cool. But Valda says like he has like a sense for it almost. He's like, I know there's a real witch out there. So you can just connect the dots that he rallied his group and then went and like
kind of sent them off in a direction of where the magic was coming from. Yeah, that's kind of what I was feeling. That's kind of what I was buying too. But I really thought Alana was done until the very end when Maxim is carrying her away. So I think she's going to make it. I just don't know who they could take her to. Well, I guess they could take her to one of the kids and like just hope that the kid just is
you don't just naturally know how to heal though. It's like
I know, but like
skill.
I'm just trying to piece ways together in my head of how Alana's going to make it out of here, because I don't think they would have put as much emphasis on Maxim carrying her away if she was actually going to die. You know, if she was going to die, they would have just kind of fell into each other's arms and died there. But I think they're making an attempt to save her. So I'm just posting out theories on how I think that's going to happen. I also am curious to know, obviously Alana cuts the bond. Is that just kind of the ambiguity of no?
No, she masks the bond. So she basically turns it down to 0. So it's not completely
0.5.
severed. They're still bonded. It's just that they no longer get that like feeling benefit. Like they're aware that it's masked. So like it's like an awareness that like we are bonded together, but I'm not getting any of the feeling beyond the fact that I know it's a thing.
When she gets, do they make a comment about when she sends when she gets shot with like the first or second arrow? Is that when she sends the signal back to Maxim to come back to her or something?
It was subconscious almost.
Yeah, I believe he ends up saying like you unmasked the bond like 5 arrows ago.
Yeah.
Might be the exact way that he ends up saying it. So it was kind of, you get stuck with a couple crossbow bolts and you're not focusing on that.
He only took what, like 2 arrows, I think, was it ish?
I don't remember. He got slashed, I think, as well. They're
definitely down bad. No, they're definitely down bad. She has like 6 in her at least.
And did you catch the subtlety of like how she used the last bit of power to kill the last person? I originally thought she was shooting like a bolt of the weave at him, but she pulls the arrow out and launches it. So it just like shoots the arrow right in. That's such a cool way to use the power.
Definitely.
I'm curious if he is dead, only because I'm pretty sure that was Child Byar who they made a point of naming in the scene before with Valda. And I just don't know if that'll be a thing or not. Because we haven't gotten a ton of names of Whitecloaks. So it seemed like it was a point like, Child Byar, this is your name. And then we kill you the next scene. I'm not sure what actually will end up happening with all of that.
All right.
I believe that's going to do it. Yeah. And actually, speaking of people dying and named characters, I just want to mention that Natty Cawthon, Matt's mom, does not die in the books. I think that this is a positive change, though, for all the reasons that Luke had mentioned earlier. This is the last book. Book 4 is the last book that she's in. So she kind of falls into that bucket, I'm sure, when they're talking at the writer's room table of like, who can we kill and get some emotional involvement out of, but it actually doesn't impact the story itself and like plot moving at a high level. So I think that was a good idea for me. Although, granted, not fun the way it happened.
Matt and his mother they weren't on the best of terms, right? I'm just curious to think of how Matt is going to take hearing the news that his mom's been killed.
Not bueno.
Yeah.
I think even if their relationship, I think he's still going to be torn up by it, especially knowing if that his sisters and her were all trapped together. You know, Matt's already Matt's already just a psychological mess, and I don't think hearing news of his sisters being imprisoned and his mom being killed is going to help his psyche anymore.
Yeah, they might
I just
wait a little
don't-
bit to tell Matt.
Yeah.
I just hope that Matt's not mad at Perrin for letting his mom die. I would be
Yes,
upset
that's
about
also
that.
another thing. Yeah.
We'll have to find out. Okay, so the third setting that we're going to tackle here is going to be the White Tower. The first scene we have here is a battle of heavyweights, let's say. So we get a very interesting conversation between Siuan Sanche, the Amerlin seat, and Elaida Sedai, the former advisor, let's say, to Queen Morghese, the Queen of Andor. Some verbal sparring. Elaida's throwing shots left and right, and Siuan's just kind of letting them roll off her back. I'm just kind of curious of what, especially you, Paul and Dave, thought about this, just like very direct aggressiveness from Elaida.
This was crazy because she went through a lot to get an audience with the seat, which, Swan brought up. And then she just starts shitting on her, right? She's just talking about her decor, your river trash, like your net is coming apart. I freaking love the fishing similes and idioms metaphor. It's incredible. And then she literally just brings out like the big hitter and is like, "Where's Moiraine? Like, where's your biggest secret that you keep from the rest of the tower? Like, I know about it." It's just, it was threats left and right. And Swan, of course, like kept her cool, but in her back of her mind, I'm like, oh my God, this was so much easier like 2 weeks ago when she wasn't here. Like, I know I still had everything else to deal with Leandrin, but like at least we didn't have to worry about Elaida. And like I had the same exact feeling as Swan, like assuming Elaida is bad. She's already with the red. There's potential she's with the black. So wild scene. And then in hindsight, I was trying to figure out what the point of this was. Was this literally just Elaida coming to say, I'm going to call for a vote? Or did she plant something? Was she just scoping the room for infiltration later? Like I had no idea.
I thought she was just going in there to, kind of let her know that I'm coming for your throne right now. I thought that's how I took it. Fuck Elaida. If Child Valda is at the number one of most hated characters for me right now, I'm gonna put Elaida at a sweet spot of number 2. This whole conversation pissed me off so much, and I couldn't tell if Elaida was just being classist in the sense that she was only digging into Swan about her being a fisher and how she was just poor and just came to the tower. And even when she came to the tower as a poor fisher, Elaida always hated her. It just feels like Elaida is so classist, and she maybe has always been an elite in her mind. So fuck Elaida. I am definitely against her, even with how she kind of rebounds at the end a little bit. But her and Swan are absolutely, I think this is the tension that here is what I live for. It's just brewing. A storm is brewing at the White Tower. We don't know, who is going to be the breaking point, which of these remaining Black Aja are going to just help, Elaida in terms of just getting Swan out of there. It's so interesting. I think this is definitely one of my more interested storylines, absolutely. And I love to hate Elaida. She's doing a great job at making me hate her.
Paul, I think part of this scene, beyond the points that we've touched on, is that these are two powerhouse actors. So what a great excuse to get the two of them in the room and start throwing some shade at each other, while Elaida's is a lot more direct. Swan's is a little bit maybe underhanded. I love the way she kind of claps back about the election, and it's kind of like, when you come for the queen, best not miss again, essentially. So they're interesting matches for each other. They're just both powerhouses in the show. So I loved everything about this. I think it was interesting to note that Swan mentions that Elaine has left the tower and that she's told Morghese. It will be interesting to know, to maybe find out further on, of I don't know if Morghese felt like the type of person that's Jay chilling with Elaine going after the Black Aja and Tanchico. So it'll be if we ever find out what exactly Swan said to Morghese, because there's no way she told her all the details. And the second thing I'll bring up is, because it might swing back around to the Aiel Waste conversation of, I have no idea what Swan was doing before Elida walked in. She sniffs that letter. I don't know if that was was she sniffing Elida coming in? It seemed like she sniffed the letter. Was the letter from Moiraine? I have no idea. That completely threw me for a loop.
That's what I was getting. It just was a letter from Moiraine, and it smelled of her. She still missed her, and that's why she could smell it on the card. And I only say that just because when we get Moiraine later on, she does say, I talked to you this way because it was immediate. So I can't write another letter because that would take too long. So that's why I was assuming that the letter was from Moiraine.
Actually, just now I'm thinking maybe it could have been an old letter as well. Maybe she was reminiscing on better times.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, a letter from her love and that little magic treasure box that Luke mentioned a couple episodes ago. Okay, so before we get into the kind of conclusion scene here, I just want to bring up the conversation of, I have it written as the Swan Squad. So this is Varen, Lyanna, and Swan. We know that they're kind of organizing the clandestine tower defense against the Black Aja. Swan is very gung-ho on the fact, and Lyanna seems to agree as well, that Elida is Black Aja. Lyanna comes up with this plan to kind of trap her, and while Varen is a little bit on the other side of it, Varen informs them of the Black Aja heart system that we learned about via Nynaeve and Elaine in episode 3. And I feel like everything that's happening here is in character. Lyanna has always been kind of an aggressive hothead in a way. Varen is looking for all the details and the clues and such.
Yeah, this is the politics that we love to freaking see in the White Tower. So I think they always do this, at least in the books. They focus so much on the White Tower politics. You forget what Aes Sedai's you're even reading about, because there's so many of them that are named. But I like that they're centered on the powerhouses here that we're all kind of know and love. But the thing that really gets taken away, and this is for the new guys, is they say that there's at least one Black Aja. So we can, for fun board guesses purposes, which we're going to put you guys to the test later.
This is where
I
Paul
think
was going to come in.
We'll focus with at least one guess, and you can always, assume that there's more, maybe not. But yeah, we're going to get a board guess, I'm sure, by the end of this episode.
Is that where you were going to go, Paul? Is that what you were about to say?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. I was like, all right, Dave, time to put it on the board. Let's see what we got here.
Put it on the board.
What do you got?
Oh, this is great.
I don't really have a good one, I guess. I'll just stick with what we know, and I'll keep my eyes on Varen for right now.
Varen, yes. Interesting, because Swan brought her up. She said, I can't trust anybody, even Varen. So, of course.
And just to kind of go back on what we've been talking about, the way Nynaeve and Elaine also, when they were at the White Tower, how they were kind of viewing Varen as a little sketchy is still kind of in my head a little bit. I think a crazy twist would be Lyanna, just the right hand of the Amelin seat, but I'll pencil in Varen for now. I'm not confident with that, though.
So I'm not confident in this either, but this is the first name that came to mind. And even Lyanna Sedai was saying, oh, so there's still one more sister in the tower. The first thing came to my head was, no, she's not. And she does call her a sister. So I don't want to, that might kind of mess with it. But I was thinking Min, right? Because Min was in the tower that whole time. And like the attack goes down. She was supposed to be Swan's spy. So that's like, she has all the information, right? She has both sides of all the information. And that was leading me into the conversation that I was having earlier, where I get nervous about Matt, is because if Matt does kind of fall for Min, and Min really is like a traitor, then that would suck. But she's not a sister, so I pull back on that, and could not be a thing.
So you just
No.
your guess is no guess.
No,
Or
I'm
you guess
saying
maybe
Min,
one
but
Min.
I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're just not
I was
confident.
gonna say, is there any worry's probably not the right word, but that it's kind of a sister that we maybe haven't met yet.
I don't think they would do it. If it is, I hope they're at least going with someone that we've met maybe once or twice. So who was the blue sitter that Moiraine was kind of beefing with when she returned back in season 1?
She got
She
caught by the
died.
Sean Chen and died in the prison cell.
Oh, that's
after
totally
Queen.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm even
No,
trying
I mean,
to
you
just
are
think
right.
of, yeah, I'm just trying to like throw some just random Aes Sedai that we've been introduced to, and maybe it could
we
be
actually in this next scene we actually get the confirmation of a name that we mentioned. It must have been episode 1 because she's there at Egwene's accepted test, but this is kind of Elida is speaking to Alviarin Sedai. So this is the White Aja woman. 98% sure that she's a sitter of the White Aja, so she has some clout and some standing. That seems to be why Elida is talking to her, because she's talking about this vote. Elida is very gung-ho, and we're gonna have a vote, and we're gonna win the vote, and we're gonna go after, and we're gonna cage Rand al'Thor. I liked this quick characterization of just the White Aja in general, where Elida's like, come on, like, you got to be on our side, even though you've been on Swan sides before. And Alviarin's like, listen, I'm White Aja, like, we're just logic and truth. So if you make the argument and we agree with it, like, we'll vote with you. But, it has to, the logic has to be there before we do anything.
And not coincidentally, Elida's goal is also seeming to be the same goal of the Black Ajas. I don't think Elida is the Black Aja based off the events that we haven't discussed yet, but if someone were to align with Elida's goals of wanting to imprison the Dragon Reborn, so let's say the new Red's temporary sitter that's now in place, I forget her name as well, with the birthmark under her eye.
Well, it's actually Elida, because the established ones were Galena. So Galena is the red sister that has the birthmark, and then Sutama is the actual head kind of the Red Aja that got sent out.
So
to
what I'm
down
thinking is maybe Galena, since she is a red and kind of is viewing Elida, the whole let's imprison the Dragon Reborn. I still am going to go with Varen, but that is a side Aes Sedai that we haven't gotten too much screen time of. That if they were to make her the Black Aja reveal, that would be one I'm okay with. But if it is someone that we haven't met yet, like even if it was the White Aja that we just met here, that's good. But if it's someone that we haven't met yet, that would be definitely a little disappointing from my perspective.
Just trying to think of other sisters, like Queen Margaise, technically a sister, right? She wasn't.
Like, could Varen's sister be it? Like,
she's not a sister.
I'm also thinking of Varen's sister, if maybe because she got attacked by a Black Aja. What if this is all a front? Okay, I'm switching my answer. I'm going to Varen's sister, not Varen. I'll go Varen's sister, because while she did take the attack from the Black Aja, it could be totally a front. Like, oh, it actually didn't work, and I'm just here to be a leak in the room.
And so it was Varen's sister that planted the seeds to Elida.
Yes. But again, because the Black Aja's goals align with Elida, it would make sense.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That's not a bad guess at all. I was just clarifying. Because we didn't actually talk about her.
Yeah, that's a good lead up to into what happens here in this final scene, is that it seems at some level it's both a setup for Swan and the squad to catch Elida red-handed as a Black Aja in their minds, but also because of the Gray Men's there, we're also realizing that the situation is also dovetailing into an assassination of the two sisters that are there. So multiple people's goals are kind of achieved, let's say, through this process, and it is kind of who is actually pulling the strings on getting all of this stuff to happen. So we have Elida come in. I'm going to use the word powerhouse again because I think it's so apt, of just later, Amiko. Like, I trust you. You ain't going to say nothing. So cool. All right. Yeah. Then you are useless to us. Joya seems to be actually sitting on the name that we're kind of ruminating around of who it might be. But naturally, the timely Greyman attack assassinates Joya before she can possibly give Elida the name. Elida gets attacked as well. But then we have Lyanna Swan come in and kind of save Elida. And my question will be, I'm sure we want to talk about kind of those finer details because we're getting a lot of gray men this season, and I'm not complaining about it because it's
Love
awesome.
every second of it.
And I seem to know the answer to this question because as we just had that whole conversation, but Swan seems to be 100% convinced that Elida is not Black Aja because of what has happened in this scene. And it seems to be that you two are also on that train as well.
Yeah, I know that we had, or Swan even earlier in the episode mentions to Lyanna and Varen that she could be going down there to kill them to prevent them from spilling more secrets. But while yes, she did that right away to the yellow Aja sister, she was torturing the other one to get information. It wasn't just a quick assassination attempt. That's where I'm at. I think there was zero hesitation for me in thinking that Elida was working with the Black Aja. She is definitely more pissed at them for betraying their sisters, and especially when the yellow sister was kind of talking about, I would never betray my sisters, as in like the Black Aja sisters. I think that really struck a chord with Elida, and she was just like, nope, I have to give Elida her flowers, man. I just was talking so much shit on her, but this scene was so fucking badass. This was so awesome to see her just command the room. We knew Elida was super strong, especially since she was the one that was competing for the Amelin seat against Swan, I should say. It was shown here. I mean, again, I'll keep saying it. The yellow sister before she died was saying, you know, your sisters before you came in here and tried getting information, nothing's going to change. And Elida's different. Elida's diff. We got it. And I love this scene for her. I wanted to have her in my LVP up until this point. So I'm still kind of deciding in my head about that. But I fucking loved this scene, to be honest. It was so cool. And the gray men showing up at the end was just a cherry on top to the whole scene, to be honest.
I had a theory that you guys laughed at earlier on this season. This was put on the board way back when, but I was saying Liandrin would have a turn on the Amelin seat, which obviously she's not. But if Elida, the new red sitter taking Leandrin's place, is also planning on calling for a vote to get on the Amelin seat, I wasn't that far off. Like by the transitive property,
zero credit.
I was gonna say by the transitive property with the red sitter, I'm gonna take like 10% credit. How about that? And then my only question for you guys, and I don't even know if you can answer this, but I know you've discussed gray men. You don't really see them. Your eyes kind of glance off them. Can they like travel? Because I don't know how they're getting to these places. I know you can't see them and they can just infiltrate, but to get all the way down to like the White Tower's cells is pretty crazy. But I don't know how long he was doing it. He could have been doing it for like a week.
I picture them using the portals, the Forsaken portals that they've been using to communicate with one another. I feel like she just sends them through there, but that's just kind of my guess.
Just keep in mind that I think they're changing a lot of the lore around the Gray Men. Like we even already know that Moghedien is the one that was like making them earlier. Like there's a lot of changes, so I don't know how accurate me and Kyle could even be with answers, but I would almost rather the show tell us more about what their plan is, because what else are you even going to say, Kyle, right? Like there's nothing to really add about things we know about their traveling abilities or like how often they communicate with other things, if they do at all. We don't know a lot about them from the books, which is why I think the show is doing it so freaking well. Like even, I don't know if you guys caught it, but it definitely took me I think it was my second watch. I actually saw it where when Elida is torturing the Black Aja, like the gray man passes in front of the camera for a second. And it's so freaking cool because you're just not even paying attention, especially the first time through. You don't even notice it, but it's just like a quick little cinematography thing they do where it just passes right in front. I think they do those little things like Podon Fane whistling in the background of scenes, or the gray men just being in the background of scenes, not focused or looked on at all. They do those subtle things really well, and I think the gray men is just lends itself to just really cool cinematography and cool writing like they showed here.
I miss the Podon Fane whistle so much. I can't wait to see my boy again. You know me, I'm a dark friend ride or die at this point.
So that's why you don't like Elida, because it got confirmed this episode that she's not Black Aja.
Yeah, she's not one of us. She's not one of us.
If she was Black Aja, do you think you would like her more because of the way she acts?
Honestly, probably yes. If she did come out as Black Aja, I probably would like her a little bit more, to be honest.
That is hilarious. I love that. And to answer the Greyman question, I think this will be a conversation we can probably have somewhat continually, because it does seem like Luke said they're giving us more of it. So I'm hopeful that we can maybe get some more information about it. Because is it just like Moghedien is creating them, or Moghedien, again, whatever, but is it just her using them? How many is she making? We got to see her make one. We've seen at this point what's end up maybe 4. I just kind of made that number up. That
3?
can't be right, is it? 3? So
Three's good.
we'll see. We'll see how kind of things all shake out. Okay. I think we're going to leave the tower now.
I actually want to make one comment. Sorry, I know you were kind of already getting into the depths of the Aiel waste here a little
I
bit,
was
but
grooving.
I'm just thinking about now the relationship between Elida and Swan, in terms of, obviously they were beefing. Elida had made it known to Swan that she was going to be gunning for the seat, but here we have them kind of having a common goal in wanting to flesh out the Black Aja and, you know, discover more about the Greymen. But at the same time, how is Elida going to react to realizing that she was the bait in this situation? You know, does this scene bring them closer together in a common enemy with the Black Aja, or does this bring them farther apart because she was just bait? So I'm posing that out there.
So you think Elida can change and soften up maybe a little bit?
For her sisters, I think she would, you know.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah.
She does have that ideology that she spouts in the start of this episode, which I thought was interesting, where she says people don't change. That's how she kind of is aware of the whole Moiraine thing, because she knows these two. She's known them their whole lives. And that's just always an interesting potential dichotomy, juxtaposition, whatever you want to say, to a lot of other characters as well, of like the concept of growth and all that stuff, while Elida seems to have that way, but also people can change. So we'll see if Elida
and
herself...
the fact that she was Swan's teacher at some point, also another testament to her power, that she's still around and still looking great and, you know, being a badass.
All right. So with that, we can move into the Aiel waste. So naturally, this was the focus of all of episode 4, and I was pleasantly surprised about how much is in this episode as well. I mean, we all know that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, Moiraine and Lan are big hitters, Egwene's a big hitter as well. So I'm glad that we didn't just completely run away from this storyline to give the other ones time to breathe. We have this opening scene of the episode. Naturally, the opening scene of our conversation here is that we have Moiraine channeling with the Sarkhanen. We've gotten a lot of dream fake outs and like vision fake outs, but this was legit real. So this was, I think, a great way to visualize what it's like to use sa'angreal that are this powerful, and getting a reminder of what it's like to take in too much power. So season 1 finale, we got that really graphically on display of that woman taking in all of the power and burning herself out. And Moiraine was having some of those physical signs here. We're seeing like their redness and like the glow underneath her skin. So I thought this was a very ambitious way, let's say, to start this episode.
And let me just ask a question before you guys jump in. I watched this back 5 times and I could not tell when Lan comes in and grabs her. What is the first word he uses to describe the feeling when she says, what was that? Does he say,
Euphoric?
That's what I got. Does he say euphoric? Okay. Because the lack of subtitles crushed me. And I thought it was euphoric, but the way he said it didn't sound perfectly fine. But either way, this was a really cool scene. It actually caused a ton of controversy online in the Wheel Time Book Club community, because people reading too into it with the preview, not because they obviously haven't seen the scene yet, but just know that everybody needed to just calm down a little bit, because I thought that the scene was really good. And the thing that people were complaining about, they didn't even do, I think so. But anyway, what did you guys think about the use of the sa'angreal?
Yeah, so clearly Moiraine is struggling with using it. And my mind immediately thought of how Aes Sedai nowadays are, you know, weaker than they were in the past. The Amelin seat, that Latra Sedai, she had no problem using the Sarkhanen back in the day. And Moiraine, again, we find out, had a chance to become the Amelin seat against Swan as well, but she opted not to because of her personality. But Moiraine being almost at Amelin seat level and still having to struggle with the Sarkhanen is just a testament to, I think, not only how powerful the Aes Sedai used to be, but also how hard it will be to find someone that is capable of using the Sarkhanen in a way that will beat the Dark One. So I think I said in the past that I had pictured Rand wielding Kalendor and Egwene wielding the Sarkarnan, which I'm still kind of latching on to that idea because we've been announced multiple times that Egwene is one of the strongest Aes Sedai, or at least channelers that we've seen in hundreds of years, if not thousands. A lot to take in. Really beautifully well shot scene. I don't know what Moiraine. I think Moiraine was more so testing it, I guess. I don't think she was trying to actually recreate the glass columns, but I think she was just trying to get a feel for it. And it was really visually stunning to see. I think we've iterated enough, but the improvement for the CGI, I think, was so clear here in season 3, and it's just been only improving as the season's been going on.
Yeah, the weaves look great. I love the consistency. Like every time somebody uses a Sarkarnan, it's like the green looking weaves too as well. I don't know if that will continue or if that was just what they were channeling at the time, but it was just so badass. The last scene you get is they just zoom out and Moiraine just changed the landscape of the whole desert just from using that. I was like, that is incredible.
I knew you were going to comment on like the sand being moved and like impacted.
So cool
from her use of it. So I'm glad that got mentioned. I think a shout out too is necessary for Rosamund Pike's acting. I mean, if you're on set on the day, none of that stuff is happening.
I know. I always think of that when they're doing the channeling. When she's on the boat doing this, and I'm just like,
yeah,
it just looks so
another
ridiculous without the
example.
CGI. Yeah,
yeah. So it's just like so good, and I like Lan kind of repeating what Rand says in episode 2, maybe, where because she asks him, and we've covered the euphoric part, but he says I'm pretty sure, again without the subtitles, he says, but it was like hunger or thirst, but deeper,
yeah.
Where there's just this desire for more and more and more and more and more, and it's that slipperiest of slopes of how easy it is to take in too much power, and it's just.
The bond is so cool, to be honest. That
Bond is very cool.
Lan can experience these things without getting, too afflicted by the actual effect of, wielding the Sarkarnan and having the one power or whatever. So that is just so cool that he is able to feel these things. A really heavy emphasis on the bond in this episode.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. And you know what? People were really upset about the emphasis on the bond in season 1, episode 6, with the whole step in and he dies and we have all that stuff. But again, the groundwork was laid, and I think people maybe have a better understanding of what's actually happening because we went through that. So begrudgingly, well done. Okay, so the next scene we have here is technically groups of scenes, but I have them as the Sand Squad. So I was in my squad bag while taking notes for this episode, the alliteration squad bag. And so they're traveling to Cold Rock's Hold, which is kind of, let's say, the seat of the Tardad Aiel. So this is essentially home base for Ruark, Bear, Moiraine, Avienda, and the Tardad clan. And we have some conversations before we get there. We have a little bit of some meeting when we get there. I think everything that happens before they actually sit down and have the meal is kind of fair game in this conversation. We learned some things here. Let's be honest. We learned some things about our boy Ruark, not to jump the gun and kind of guide the conversation where I wanted to go. But my boy is he's a player.
That was the first thing I thought of, though, was this scene. I was like, why are they showing it? Are they just, building the Aiel culture, which they definitely could be. But then I was thinking, is this gonna relate to Rand at all? Like, Avienda even brings it up later. She's like, oh, like, you only have one lover. I feel bad for Egwene. Like, everything going on with Lanfear, like, is that going to be a thing as well? Is he going to, fall into that trap? Because Lanfear's been, like, grooming him pretty much lately, and seems like he can't walk away from her. So, and I keep, like, going back to when she was saying, like, oh, I think there's a way to get rid of my dark oaths and I can renounce them. And, like, I don't know if she's actually telling the truth there, but a part of me wants to think she is. And, like,
you are on the board.
Yeah.
For this season, you've mentioned that you see Lanfear sees the light, is the way I have it written down.
Yeah. Like, is she? There's so much talk about oath breakers. Like, is she going to be an oath breaker in the sense that she can use the Sicarnan and break her O's, and then her and Rand will be together. But anyway, this all those a million thoughts just stemmed from Ruark's wives kissing, and that was about enough to send me on a tangent typing away.
Well, it's nice your brain didn't turn off watching that. It actually made you think things. That's good.
The only other thing, the golden dragon tattoos just look so good, man. He just rolls up the sleeves real quick. Yeah, I'm the dragon reborn. What of it?
I like that Ruark's wives, it seems like they have different titles in the household. So it was the home wife was, what was it, like the roof shade of my heart, which I took as, okay, she is the home shade of his heart, whereas Bear is no.
Your heart's in the right place. But so his wife, Leon, I believe is the way that he pronounces it. Lean, I don't know. I forget the way I wrote it down, but she is the roof mistress. So he's the clan chief. She is the roof mistress. So she kind of holds down the fort. Let's say she holds down the roof, while Bear is a wise one, which, as we've learned kind of in the past few episodes, is a little bit more of like a cultural kind of wisdom keeper. You know, she's been through the rings. She's been through Ruidion and all that stuff. So there's, you were right to identify the fact that there are two different roles, but Shade of My Heart is just like a term that they use.
Okay.
It's a term of endearment.
Okay. And I'm also thinking if he has a wise one wife and then a housewife, does he have a battle wife? You know, is there does he have one that has spears that goes to combat with him? Because I don't think the wise ones, at least I'm not taking it as the wise ones are in battle often, even though some of them may have the potential to yield the one power.
No, they haven't really addressed it, but the wise ones they don't fight, and they're like completely off limits.
That's how I took
like,
it.
Yeah, like cultural, societal, what do they call it? Anathema, basically, to attack a wise one.
Okay.
But to address the Ruark thing, I just want to bring up this quote from the books because I forget what I was doing, like chapter summary reading or something, but I came across this quote. So not necessarily a spoiler, but this is a show of how things are different. So Matt is actually in the waste with them in the books.
Interesting.
He's kind of tagged along and begrudgingly because he's like, it's hot and there's nothing to do, essentially.
And then he's got all those redheaded
yes, yeah, he is. He
much.
is actually flanked and surrounded by beautiful gingers, as he would probably say. But his quote when he finds out, when he watches this happen, when he sees Ruark has multiple wives, and he says, "Both of them light too. Oh, burn me! He's the luckiest man in the world, or the biggest fool since creation."
That honestly is so fitting for his character. That is such a perfect line.
Yeah. It literally cracked me up when I read that, and I was like, that is so funny that we just got to that episode in the show. And Luke, I'm sorry, I stepped over you, so you have some things to say.
Yeah, just a couple comments. The first is like while they're walking to the city, the wise ones tell Egwene that the wise ones talk to each other in the dream world all the time, right? Like they meet and talk. So that's just something we can talk about later. The other two things I want to say is I love how they humanized and kind of painted Rand here as like a person, right? When he was messing around with the little kids and running around. I really like those little moments because he's a farm boy who hasn't seen the world, like Kyle was saying earlier about the other characters. So he does have that little bit of innocence in him. And I like that he's also being a good role model. And then to Sarah, I guess, which Ruark's granddaughter. But what I wanted to say is I thought the granddaughter had the funniest cadence this episode. When she comes up, she's like, "Are you the Carl Khan?" And then later on, she's like, "Hey, Randall Thor, did you like that? I made that, Randall Thor." It's just so funny how she was like speaking. I was just cracking me up. I thought she was great.
Did you like the squash, Randall Thor?
Yeah,
I made the squash, Randall Thor.
Yeah, so funny.
I will also call out, so some things happened off screen between last episode and this episode. I guess you could say maybe along the journey post Ruidion. So we do learn that the Shido have officially rejected Rand as the Karkarn.
Interesting.
Because jumping off of what Luke had mentioned about how the wise ones have had conversations in the dream world, Avienda is kind of worried a little bit. Not worried, but she kind of inquires, or maybe it's Egwene. I don't entirely remember who does it, but they're basically like, will the other clans accept Rand, or will they do what the Shido did and reject him? And we do learn that they've kind of set up this big meeting, let's say, they mentioned the place is called Alcair Dal. not incredibly important. I think the important thing is to know that we're heading towards this kind of, not a confrontation necessarily, but a meeting, a gathering of all the Aiel clans, because they want to get everyone together and to meet the Karakharn, a meet and greet almost, let's say, with Rand al'Thor, the Karakharn. So they're trying to get all of the clans together to recognize Rand. So that's kind of something that happened off screen and is boiling around in the background, let's say, from now forward, is that's kind of our goal, our next step of Rand being announced as the Karakharn.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because they're walking in the beginning of this episode through the desert, and I'm in my head thinking, what is their next goal right now? I don't know what the plan is for them now that he's already walked through Rhuidean and done what he's need to do there. So I'm glad you brought that up. I was definitely a little thrown off on at least where our objectives are heading.
Yeah. And speaking of objectives, Avienda is also told here what her personal objectives are, and it's to get close to Rand, to teach Rand the ways of the Aiel. I think they even mentioned like you have to be by his side from the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to bed at night. So
I don't know.
We talked before, about how she doesn't really like him. So I think some entertaining bits might be coming between the two of them.
I also don't know if her makeup is like slightly different from being a wise one, because I, for the life of me, didn't recognize that as Avienda like right away. It took me a little bit more than a second to realize that was Avienda. Maybe it's because she's lacking the spears behind her. She's got the hood up or whatever. But I did not look like Avienda at first to me. But I think it's also kind of a testament to her now moving on to becoming the role of a wise one. So kudos.
I think they've had the maidens have like a lot of black, like eyeshadow, eye paint, like around their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that I think that was the biggest difference for me, because I do agree that she looks noticeably different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing too before the meal is just that we have, as when Luke mentioned that Rand's kind of playing with the kids and Egwene's looking after him and she kind of enjoys seeing him in that way. And Bear shuffles up to her and basically says, "We got to train, baby girl. Like the time for watching him is through. We got some shite to do." And shite we do later. But before we get to that, I think it's important to have this conversation about the meal. It just branches off that Avienda point of she has to teach him things, but she also enjoys watching him fail and struggle to do things. She likes to tease him and that stuff. So we're just getting a little bit more of it being ingrained, let's say, into the Aiel culture, which I just enjoyed. We learned that they have multiple lovers. Like Luke already mentioned, I love that quote. That's a lot for one person, perhaps too much. It's polite to speak at meals, and then you eat with your right hand. So Rand obviously has a lot to learn.
Do we ever get to find out why they only eat with their right hand? Because in my head, I'm comparing that to when it's like, do you even know why you don't wield swords? Do you even know why you don't eat with your left hand? I'm just, is there, you had to head back to Rhuidean to find out why you don't eat with your left hand.
That way, just run all the way back there and figure it out.
You know what? I would take another episode there. That would be amazing for me.
That's so good. Okay. Again, there really isn't a ton at the meal that we A, haven't known, and B, didn't already talk about. So I think we can move into great stuff here. So this is Egwene's training session. We have them explaining a lot of things about Tel'aran'rhiod, aka Tar, aka the Dream World. Egwene is fumbling around a little bit in the Dream World, and we get a cameo from our favorite Dreamwalker, our favorite chosen, the daughter of the moon herself. So a lot, I think, to talk about here.
Yeah, this was incredible. Like you said, they set the ground rules for Tel'aran'rhiod, and that's all I want. I want to know.
You were saying that so confidently and so well. I'm jealous. You didn't even hesitate when you said that. I'm impressed. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, first of all, thank you. And second of all, like just the way they explained that this is your dream, like, it should be safe here, but not all dreams are here, but people can stumble into the dream world. That explains how people die in their sleep. That's just, I don't think that will come into play in the story, but it's just so cool to relate that to the rest of the world. Just the brass pin in the candle, really cool. I don't know why I thought it was so cool, but it was just a unique device. And
I agree 100%. I loved that part.
Love it. It reminded me of one of the scientists. Oh man, it's gonna piss me off. Isaac Newton. He used to take naps in his in a chair with a steel pan below him, and
Oh my God.
metal ball bearings in his hands. So he'd fall asleep, but he didn't want to get too asleep. So just when he fell asleep enough, the ball bearings would slip from his hand, hit the metal sheet, and wake him up. So he wouldn't like fully sleep. And that just reminded me of this completely. It's like you don't want to go in too deep. You need to hear the pin. You need to be remembered that you're in the dream world and wake up. So loved all of that. And I absolutely loved the, you know, I think they said like wild thoughts or uncontrolled thoughts is what they said can be troublesome. Egwene's armor, insane,
Yeah.
looks so good. And the fact that it just pops up because she feels unsafe, so cool. And then the second, she must be so strong because they're like, how the hell did you just disappear? And she was like, well, I believed that I was somewhere else, and then I was. So she's just a damn natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bear seemed to be a little impressed by how Egwene was already maneuvering in the dream world while who's the other one? I always forget her name. I always forget
Believe it's
names in
pronounced
general.
Mullane.
Mullane was like a little, she seemed a little unimpressed as in she was like, this chick, she's just getting lucky almost. But some more things to add about the lore of the dream world is that you do not need the one power to enter, which opens up the possibility of a lot more of our characters. Well, I won't say a lot. I don't know how rare the ability is itself, but does open the pathway for other people to become dream walkers as well. I think I heard that death in the dream means death in the real world, so you got to watch out for that. And they reference these monsters that will eat your heart, which I'm assuming is kind of in reference to what Paul is saying, that if, you know, you kind of imagine maybe one of your biggest fears, it can come to life and kind of just kill you. I don't know if they were specifically talking about a separate actual dream monster that specifically eats people's hearts, but just those were some of the other takeaways that I have. And I just love the whole concept of the dream world, just deeper and deeper layers into the world that we already love, you know?
Yeah, and the books, there's more rules and it's less, there's a lot more going on with the dream world. I think it's whittled down to almost like what it needs to be for the show. And I like not the simplicity of it, because there's layers and there's rules, just like you guys are bringing up, but it's so easy to follow. And I think it's consumable in such a good way. I was very worried that things were going to get weird when the show tried to adapt all of the dream world stuff, because it's very important. It's its own realm and it's so clearly tied to Egwene here. And like you said, she's a natural. She needs something to be in her, like her storyline that just makes that appeals to how strong she is. And this is what we're going to get. And just like the idea of just think what you want, like you can think up weapons, and the CGI of it all was so good. Everything about this was impressing me, and I'm really excited for the pathway forward for Tel'aran'rhiod. But like, it's talking about Lanfear, who I think we can kind of in hindsight realize like how awesomely powerful she is in this too, because she's like the owner, not the owner, but she's the Forsaken or the Chosen that this is like home base for her. So that's like that lends itself to a really cool storyline down the way too. And she's awesome, and she knows that she just hates Egwene, and that gets reinforced even later. But however that's gonna work, I'm curious what you guys take on it, of like what their relationship's gonna turn into. But eventually when Egwene does get waken up, I like that they finally name dropped what the Forsaken / the Chosen are called in the Aiel culture, which is the Shadow Sought. And again, just cool names. And I think there's even, I don't think they've said it yet, so I won't say it now, but the name of the Dark One in the Aiel culture is cool too. Like they all have their own verbiage, and it'll probably naturally come up.
When Egwene, right before she saw Lanfear, it seemed like she could see ghosts. That's how I took it. It seemed to be like the spirit of a little boy. I don't know if that was an actual dream or not. I don't know if you guys can confirm, but that's how I saw it.
So that was the visualization of that concept of anyone can touch Tel'aran'rhiod. So that is like kind of people in their own dreams, like briefly entering it, and kind of like they're not fully there and materializing the way that Egwene and Lanfear are. They're just like in and out almost.
Gotcha.
So that was the way to visualize that.
I like how it took us a couple episodes to kind of get the full confirmation that it was Lanfear manipulating the dreams, and she is the one, because you know the interactions that Egwene had already had with, you know, Bear about dreamwalking, and Bear even seemed to be surprised that Egwene's dreams were kind of manifesting the way they were with the marks around her neck. And so this is and it was like a little bit obvious to the viewer in a way that it was kind of Lanfear, with especially with the parallels that they would have of Egwene being in the dream world and reminiscing of Rena, while Rand is in a peaceful dream with Lanfear, and it's just like, is Lanfear just messing with Egwene because she's stealing Luce Theron away from him. I like that it took us a couple episodes to like kind of give us time to craft our own theories and ideas, and we just get it here that it was Lanfear, and yes, it shows how powerful of a dream controller she is. Even experienced dreamwalkers like Bear are in fear of her as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they train Egwene into being more prepared for Lanfear in the future.
Two things that I can take no credit in because through the internet, and one of them was also mentioned in the comments of our last YouTube video. But number one being, if you actually look at Egwene's dreams of Rena in this season, it is Lanfear in like
makeup?
the costuming, yes, and the makeup.
That's so cool.
It is Natasha O'Keefe, which is awesome.
So cool. Yeah.
And the second one being more of a real world fun thing, that Bear, her husband in real life, is Jaime Lannister.
Yes, we got that reveal recently. I thought that's just so cool.
That's cool, right? It's so cool that they both get the experience being in like fantasy, such big, like fantasy adaptation productions. It's just pretty cool. Okay,
definitely.
I'm looking through my list, and I think that we covered anything. The only thing I think I'll shout out is that, if I'm not mistaken here, the armor that Egwene's wearing is the same exact armor that she wears in her trial for the accepted test when she's upon the horse and is the Amyrlin seat. So she's visualizing herself in that armor. That was just a nice continuity kind of callback thing that I personally really enjoyed. Other than that, I think that we covered everything. I just love the concept of like, if you think it can be.
Yeah.
It's just, it lends itself to so many, it lends itself to so many cool things. And the way they visualize it is so cool, with the way kind of things like flap around, like off of you or onto you. It just was, I think, such a great stylistic choice that is nice on the eyes. Okay, so these next scenes here there's three of them that are just conversations. It's Lan and Melindra have a conversation about Malkier. We have Egwene and Rand have a very brief conversation. And then we have Moiraine and Lan have a conversation. So I think we can take them kind of, let's say, in order of importance, which is the way I just said them as well. I don't know how much we want to talk about Lan and Melindra having this Malkier conversation. To me, I'm taking away, it's just us further exploring Lan's insecurities about his own identity as the king of the Lost Nation. I'm not sure if anyone wants to add anything onto that.
Just he feels like a fraud, kind of, because he's like, what king hasn't even been to his own kingdom? So good reinforcement that he was just a baby pretty much when Malkier fell.
Yeah, and it's just good to keep it up because we met her in that episode, and it would kind of stink if she just went away completely. So it's nice that we're getting her back. Okay, we can now move into number 2, which is Egwene and Rand having this conversation. Egwene is packing the bag, her little night bag, to go stay with the Wise Ones because she is got a taste of Tel'aran'rhiod training. She wants more of it. The Wise Ones are instructing her as well to come with her, and we're getting a little bit of awkwardness in their relationship that's continuing post Ruidion. So we got it a little bit earlier in the season, and I think now it's a lot more real, let's say, in this scene.
Yeah, on the second watch through, it's so much more obvious that Rand is feeling lonely. I think, he doesn't want to be with Lanfear. I think he wants to be with Egwene, but Egwene, it's not Egwene pushing him away. It's just obviously where they are at in their current stories doesn't really offer a way for them to spend too much time together. And, Rand he just went to Ruidion for, I think it was 7 days or 8 days. And now he comes back, and we already have Egwene getting into her training, which will take place during nights, obviously. And Rand's training takes place during the day. And Rand is upset by the news that Egwene is opting to stay with the Wise Ones overnight, but he does understand that that's kind of what she wants to do. And he does understand that she needs to find out what's going on in the dream world, because he obviously doesn't know that it's Lanfear causing all of her issues. But this on the rewatch really made it more obvious to me why why Rand is going to Lanfear in his dreams. I think it's just he's feeling lonely, and it kind of is going in parallel to what we were talking about earlier with the Aiel culture of having multiple wives. It's too much of a burden for Egwene specifically. I think, Paul, you said it, Egwene specifically, to carry all that burden, and Rand unknowingly is kind of putting his eggs in multiple baskets here, and I feel for him. I understand it. I don't think it's obviously the right decision to have a side piece in the dream world, but this scene definitely hit more on the second watch through of, okay, now I understand why Rand is going to Lanfear more. He just feels really lonely in the place where Egwene and his relationship is at.
I have a question here because this is based on, so Kelly watches episode 4 and really latched on to the line that Bear says to Egwene of, your paths are not the same anymore, essentially. And I think it's easy to interpret that in the face value way of that, he's going to Rhuidean, you're not going to Rhuidean. She was reading that as in like their relationship is something that is just no longer going to be a thing. And then naturally she hasn't watched this episode yet, but I'm kind of curious from that angle now. Do you think that things are happening in this episode are fueling that? Because I know that Dave, you've been forever been that Rand and Egwene are endgame. You have them at the end of the world together, defeating the Dark One in tandem. You also think romantically that they've been endgame despite the struggles that they've had throughout the season. So I'm just kind of curious if what's happening right now is making any of those convictions falter.
No, I think I'm still on the side that I think Rand and Egwene are going to end up together. It's just right now they're just the classic, just obstacles in their relationship. Timing isn't really necessarily working out, and I think they do truly. I mean, we've seen both of them have visions about the future and wanting a better life of just them two and just relaxing. So I'd still see it as they will be endgame, and I do still see Egwene and Lanfear ending up, having a showdown at some point over the love of Rand al'Thor.
I'm gonna go the opposite. I know I was just talking about Ruark and will the multiple wives go over to Rand, but realistically, I don't see how Egwene can trust Rand or like Rand even after the ending of this. He knew the whole time what was I don't know. I want to pull back a little bit. I don't want to say he knew if Egwene was kind of telling him about all of these nightmares. He knows that like she has trouble sleeping and all that other stuff because when they were sleeping next to each other and she was freaking out. But it just doesn't seem like Egwene's going to be able to trust him because he's been willingly, knowingly hooking up with Lanfear this whole time in his dreams. And yeah, it's in his dreams, but still kind of a real place. He knows what he's doing. So I think they could be kaput a little bit. And then that would also lean more into Egwene's trials when she went through the arches. And we saw Rand with the long hair and they're on opposite sides basically. And we're like, how could they possibly get here? This could be a starting point to it.
And there was, one of the weaves that we saw Moiraine experience in the rings was her and Rand hooking up. So does this lend the opportunity for Moiraine to sneak in as Rand's next lover? Who knows? But I'll still be team Egwene and Rand till I die, probably.
So Dave's a lover. Paul feels more of a realist. Never change, Dave. Never change.
Hopeless romantic.
Okay. So the last one is probably a bit of a more meatier conversation. It's Moiraine and Lan. So we had in the first scene that she's really not willing to talk to him about what she saw in the rings. She comes around by the end of the episode. So she explains to him straight out, flat out, that she is not anticipating being at the last battle. She says, and I quote, "Every future in which I lived, Rand dies. And the only way he lives is if I don't." That's a bombshell, in my opinion, for especially where you two are at within your understanding of the story. So, what are we thinking here? Is this her misinterpreting? Is she getting it right? Is it just a feeling based off of thousand? I'm just.
Let me throw a question too, because just tell me how you took this quote from her where she says to Lan, "It's all for nothing because I won't be there." Like that's what she says to Lan when she's saying like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be at the last battle. It's all for nothing because I won't be there." That is the line I was saying earlier at the top of this episode that I think was one of the two shitty lines, like the one about the sea folk deals and the other one being this, because unless I'm misinterpreting that, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, that is weird because like it didn't mean nothing. She still made the army. She still got the Dragon Reborn where she needed to go. Unless
It's like a selfish line, right?
she's thinking like, oh, it'll never work because I need to be there to guide him in the right direction. Otherwise, this will never work. But it didn't feel like that's what she was saying. So
Right.
I agree that is a weird line because if Bran does save the world, then what do you mean that was all for nothing?
Yeah, it really rubbed me the wrong way is the best way to say it.
I think I'm taking it as I think she expected herself to be at the last battle and see how things end up. I'm even going to include like the idea of her and Swan, having a happy ending and they do their part. So I kind of took it more as it's all for nothing that I'm going to be, helping the Dragon Reborn. But yeah, it is a selfish line that I think she's saying that I won't be able to quote unquote reap the benefits of seeing the effects of what the dragon has done and knowing if I guess I live to see it become happy or bad.
Everything about that.
Yeah, it is a little weird that she's questioning herself and her legitimate entire life goal of, protecting and honing the Dragon Reborn to fulfilling his prophecy.
I think the first thing I thought of when I saw this scene was linking it back to last episode where the wise ones are telling Moiraine, like, you shouldn't have known because when people know the future, and I'm going to butcher this line because they had it perfectly and Kyle brought it up, but she was saying, Bear, that is, when people know the future, they're either too docile because they think it's just going to fall into their lap, or they're striving and doing too much to change it or to make it happen. So this could all just be she saw exactly what she needed to see to get her to where she needs to be, and she might not actually die. I don't know. I think it was pretty concrete from what she said, though. And that was a bombshell, like Kyle said, straight out of Harry Potter. One cannot live while the other one lives. So
I also was kind of patting myself on the back, though, because don't I have it on the board that Moiraine is at some point done? Like, I feel like I had mentioned that sometime in the past that Moiraine just has caring teacher sacrifice vibes of death, kind of like a Jiraiya from Naruto situation. I feel like I've kind of said that before on the podcast.
This is so in line with how you make predictions, in that you said that and then backed off of it slightly to then say that it's Moiraine will be quote unquote killed by Lanfear, but it's going to be a fake out death.
I remember this whole conversation. Oh my God.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's
I don't
where
know.
you're at.
I'm not going to tweak it. I'll leave it.
I was going to say,
but
okay, you want to leave it like that.
So we're talking about Moraine's death, and I'm like, oh yeah, called it. But
yeah, well, that's how you're trying to play both sides.
But I'm also playing both sides. Yeah.
I will say to Luke's point about the quote, I guess I interpreted it more of kind of similar to the conversation that Moiraine and Rand have around the fire in episode 3, in that it feels like a very human reaction to the information of, like, she has sacrificed her entire life, her relationship with the woman that she loves, like all of it, a relationship with her family, to do this, and kind of
end up
in her mind finding out, being confirmed that she's not actually going to be there at the climax of it, that she has to make the ultimate sacrifice, I guess, in her mind, instead of, going 90% of the way there. Like, she sacrificed everything except her own life at this point, and the fact that she has to actually go that far I think just feels probably disappointing to her. Again, I agree. I don't necessarily recall them having this explicit of a conversation about what she saw in Ruidion. In the books, there is a change in Moiraine afterwards that can kind of be picked up upon, of like she's very determined afterwards. So I do agree, and that is slightly a change in that, but I think I'm really picking up on it just feels like a very human reaction to me. Just like it's a very human frustration with Rand, and that she has done nothing but focus on this her entire life, and Rand comes along as this 20-year-old know-it-all and is trying to kind of rock the boat a little bit, which has her feeling some type of way.
I want you to give your answer on if you think Moiraine is going to make it to the last battle.
Yes, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
She's going to be there and she's going to be a boss.
I guess you're both on that train because Dave doesn't think she's actually going to die. Okay. So last big bucket here is just the dream world. So we have Lanfear in Rand's dream. We have then Moiraine recruiting Egwene to get her into Swan's dream. And then we have Egwene kind of traveling around and getting a little greedy and traveling to everyone's dream. So I see that we've been here for a little bit. So we can take all of this at once, kind of just a free for all. We can talk about what we would like.
So in the hut with Swan, this immediately reminded me of when Moiraine was in the rings, and the first vision she got was kind of Moiraine herself being in the hut. So it was almost like the roles were reversed. I don't know if that actually means anything. That's just the first thing that popped up, because this was, shitty news. This was basically Moiraine saying, and this is weird after last episode. I'm sorry, 2 episodes ago. Last episode. Anyway, Moiraine and Swan are like done. Like after last episode, I heard fans were getting upset because it seemed like the relationship was ending, but now this seems like they're also more of a finality, because Moiraine was saying we can't do this in this life, and Swan was like, all right, fine, I'll find you in another life. And it was a nice line where she says, and I will wait for you every single time, and then she kind of breaks down. Her acting Rosamund Pike is ridiculous. She is so good. It's insane.
They did a poor job of writing their breakup, is what I'll say, because I didn't even pick up. Like there is a couple of conversations that have happened throughout that it's just weird that they weren't more explicit about it. But I'm with you. I think you should be confused, because I'm confused at like their dynamic.
And I think Moiraine knowing that she's going to die makes her even more pushy of their relation. She doesn't want to engage in the relationship, knowing that she probably will not make it to the last battle. So I think here she is trying to kind of not lead Swan too much on, and kind of comfort her, save her some heartbreak when Moiraine inevitably ends up dying, I think is what she's trying to happen here. But Moiraine loves her at the end of the day, and she just can't help herself, and that's why she goes in for the kiss at the second time and admits that she loves her. But I think, yes, the whole confusion of the breakup originally confused me, but here it's definitely Moiraine being fearful of her death, that she is being more shy about it.
It is, in my opinion, it's said without being said, in that Moiraine says basically she learned 2 things. The first one being, if the White Tower doesn't bend the knee to Rand al'Thor, then they'll lose the last battle. And the second one she gets choked up at and doesn't say, but Swan understands that Moiraine saw that she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like Swan has, like, they're kind of talking after that as well, and they're kind of laughing about if Moiraine could have been the Amerlin seat, and the fact that, oh, I wish we had never gone to Katara's study that day. And then Swan's face just kind of drops, and she gets very serious. And I think in my mind, it was they were kind of saying it without saying it to each other. It was they came to a common understanding that it's Moiraine is going to die. They won't get to see each other again. This is the end of the road for their relationship. There's not an opportunity for them to truly reconcile, especially in person, physically together. So I personally loved this. I think it does maybe is a little bit of like a whiplash based off of like the last time that they even interacted. But I think there was a lot of great quotes. I think, again, to jump off Paul's point, there's some fantastic acting in this scene. And the fact that we kind of leave it with like Moiraine saying, like, what we did in this life, it kind of broken, like it can't be mended in this life. And Swan kind of just shoots back with, and I will find you in the next life again and again until we get it right. And I will wait for you every time. And they kiss kind of, for the road. And I honestly genuinely enjoyed all of this. I thought it went down very well. And Swan has some very useful information as well from Moiraine here.
I definitely didn't want to come off as saying I sound like I didn't enjoy it. I did. It's just I definitely thought like the whole sweat tent scene earlier when they're like, who's she trying to hook up with? Is it me or you? Like that was all weird because they didn't do a good job of explaining that Moiraine and Swan kind of broke up. But you're right. Like this, at face value, this scene was really good, and I think it's just so badass to say that Swan's mission was to get the tower ready to bend the knee to the Dragon Reborn. That's just such a cool idea, even though she failed pretty badly. And then Moiraine even says, like, you can't fail again. So that's Swans has flaws as strong as she is. So, but she did have probably the harder job. I don't even know which had the harder job. Moiraine was living in taverns in backwater villages. So they both had an equally hard job, but Moiraine got her shit together and did what she had to do.
This conversation too also just puts Swan in a horrendous place because she's dealing with Elida from the Tower's point, where Elida's literally come out and said, I'm going to hold a vote and we're going to get the whole tower to agree that we need to cage the dragon. And immediate other side, Moraine's literally coming to her in her dreams and saying, if you don't, we're screwed. If you don't get the tower to bend the knee, then we're totally done. So Swan is just screwed. But at least they got a good goodbye, right?
A little bit of closure. Not everyone gets that. They had this very nice conversation at the end of the road in their minds of their relationship. Okay, so I wanted to bring up before we get into the Egwene of it all, the kind of Lanfear and Rand of it all, because I know we talked about at the end of last episode of what is Rand gonna be like next time he sees Lanfear, because he has this information about what happened with her in the Age of Legends. And I don't entirely remember if anyone had kind of made a distinctive or drew a line in the sand, but we get the fact that he's a simp. He is straight up smitten, where he's like, I see the good in you. Like, I understood what you were doing. Like, he is totally wrapped around her finger and seeing that information, and is not in any way, not like repulsed, but like it didn't negatively impact his views on her at all.
She has a very interesting line where she says, I've always loved the part of you that wants to save the world, but I'm falling for and always love the part where you need
the way
to
around.
break the world. Sorry. Okay. So what was it?
She always loved the piece of him that knew he had to break the world, that destructive part of him. But she is now, let's say, softening a little bit because she's actually now finding that she's fallen in love with the good side of him that wants to save the world as well.
I took that completely different. So
yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up. I thought she said, I like this part of you. It's cute. You want to save the world. But the part I really love is a part where you need to break the world. So I was actually coming back a little bit off of Lanfear is going to switch sides, because I thought she was saying here, we both know that you, Rand, need to break the world. So I don't know. Then you clarifying that makes me happier, because I want Lanfear on the good team.
Dude, she's got layers, man. She's the best.
This scene is just so, she is a master manipulator. She is unbelievable that she's so lovey-dovey eyes for Lews Therin / Rand that she is just playing with Egwene here, and it's so fucked up, but it's also kind of the reason why she's such an interesting character. I mean, we've said it, layers to Lanfear, and she is so messed up, and Egwene is not going to be happy when she wakes up from this little dream walking that she's doing right now.
Okay, so I think we can just rapid fire this last part of it. I'm going to mention the dreams that happen, and then everyone, maybe beyond myself, I won't make a comment. Luke, you might hold your tongue as well. Pick one of the dreams to make a comment about, and then we'll be done covering this episode. So we have Egwene and Nynaeve's dream, which is just her playing with Joya. We have Elaine's dream as her guiding a sea folk ship with Avienda. Matt's dream, which is even more heartbreaking, as we mentioned, because of his mom, is him showing his family their rooms when presumably the White Tower with his little short sword that Perrin made him. We get Perrin's dream, which Paul also mentions, heartbreaking as well. He's forging some steel in the Two Rivers with Hopper, and then Aiel comes into play as well. And then naturally, like Dave mentioned, we have her with Rand's dream. The Rand's dream, let's say, maybe is we can actually have a conversation about that. But the others, you get one dream, one comment.
Perrin, dibs on Perrin. He looked so happy. Hopper there made me want to cry. I thought that scene was so beautiful. And I'm like, this is what he dreams of. This is so nice.
I'm glad you took Perrin, because since I'm a growing Elaine lad here on this side, I wanted to talk about her and how, yeah, the conflict of her interests that we see in her dream, that, you know, she's supposed to become the first Aes Sedai ruler of her country, which I'm blanking on, and here we see her clearly showing a very huge interest in the sea folks' way of just exploration, adventure, and of course having that happy ending with Avienda, which I didn't think was gonna, which I still don't think will come true, but yeah, I love to see Elaine.
Okay, then I will pick Matt's dream because I just like seeing his deepest, most inner, like what he's striving for, where he just wants acceptance from his mom and to be told that he's proud, like, and a good brother to his sisters. And I just thought that was a good moment. He's got the slick back hair too. Looks good.
I'm really proud of Paul and Dave for picking Perrin and Elaine. It's like I'm raising you guys well. It's great. Okay, so that I believe is going to move us into MVP, LVP. I know we've talked about a prohibition on Paul going first, but at this point, we've all gone first one. So, Paul, we will officially lift the prohibition. Paul, you can go first on MVP, LVP.
Are you sure? Because this is going to piss at least one person off. Because
I'm so mad right now.
Just go.
Yeah, my MVP is going to be Aiel. I mean, she is just a badass. I mean, the first little glimpse that we got of her actually defending and fighting for Perrin, incredible. Plus the end with the dream, that's what Perrin wants. He sees himself with her in the future, and they're happy together. And I want my people to be happy. So I'm going to go MVP with Aiel. And then LVP, I'm going to go Dane Bornhold. And I just think that he was a little drunk, and that's why he got a little aggressive with slapping the mother's face against the cage. And then that's why he actually agreed to letting Child Valda mess with Matt's mom. And then he was also like just a broken man. So I think he messed up this episode.
Go ahead, Dave.
All right, I'll go with MVP Egwene. Just, very high hopes for her as a dream walker, and I think she has a lot of potential there. So I'll give it to her for kind of discovering more about herself and fleshing out some of her character a bit. And then we'll go with LVP. Give it to the easy one. We'll go with Child Valda. Just hate that man to death. The worst.
Me next. All right, so
Yeah,
I'll take my MVP is going to be Alana because I loved that speech. I thought she did a great job. She did what she needed to do. She couldn't get too close to the Whitecloaks, but she could still do the cover. And then she had a badass fight scene with shooting some of the arrows out and stuff. And then on the opposite side of it, my LVP is going to be Maxim because I was very team Alana in this episode, and I thought he was being a diva. Even though I talked myself into him being Rand at some point, but I'm going to leave that alone because I wrote LVP before we had this discussion.
You're like an onion, bro. You've got layers. Okay, my MVP is going to be my boy Ruark, just casually flexing on all of us for juggling two women at the same damn time. And then my LVP is actually going to be Randall Thor because my man is falling for the oldest trick in the Landfear book. Egwene saw it all. She's kind of maybe almost moving on in her own way. He is in a tough spot right now. And a lot of it, maybe let's say, is it within his own making. The chickens are coming to roost within what's happening on that storyline. So we'll see what happens there moving forward. Can he come out of that to an MVP? We shall see. Okay. we're going to be here. We got 3 more episodes left in this season. We'll be here each week covering them. And if you like what you heard, the best way to support us is going to be liking if you're watching on YouTube. And people were doing the heck out of that last episode, which is very cool. And then also just to give us a 5-star review on whatever you're listening on. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, the ratings especially have a very big impact on the success of the show. So we really appreciate that. And if you like what you heard, we also do a ton of other things. So we have a podcast called The Core, which covers things on Apple TV, like the Severance finale I'm sure you just watched last week. We have Dark and Twisted, which is covering Yellow Jackets, and we'll cover White Lotus after that season ends. Insane episode this past Sunday, which was fantastic. We have as well Solo Leveling is on the Final Form is the name of the podcast. And that's where we're covering Solo Leveling, the anime. And we also covered Invincible, which is the #1 show on Amazon Prime at this point. So you're probably also watching Invincible if you're watching Wheel of Time. And yeah, that's pretty much the summation of what we're doing. Best way to support us is going to be, they can't say it because they're listening. 5-star reviews on if you're listening, liking on YouTube. Wow, that joke did not land at all. And then also going to the other podcasts that we have on the Bingetown TV network. For the final time in this episode, we are Binge Empire, and thank you so much for listening.